Okay. And tonight's the Guild is talking about research and fact checking. And I'm happy to have everyone here. I'm hoping folks will pop in with all sorts of comments and assistance. Talk about a rabbit hole. Okay. I spent so much time in the past month doing research on research and how to do research. And I felt like I was Alice in Wonderland, because I'm telling you, there is more stuff out there than I couldn't believe it. It's like every single thing on the internet is potentially a place where you can do some research and look for something. I mean, you may be, for instance, if I were to be searching for information, for instance, on the fires that hit, the big fire that hit, Sandy Mason wrote a book about it. So she's on there somewhere, and I could track her down. You're muted, Sandy. So if you want to talk, unmute yourself.
Okay.
In fact, everybody can be unmuted unless you feel that you have a noise in the background. And I'll always tell you if something comes through and just disturbing.
I don't, but
Okay.
have noise.
Well, how about we just go around first and say who we are. James Beatty, I'm going to let you go first. He's newbie on the block here, and he just joined us tonight.
Hello, good evening. Can you guys hear?
What your interest is?
Are you able to hear me? Okay, yeah. So I'm James. I've actually been writing for a long time. About 30 years. So from back when I was a teenager, got a handful of things that I've done on through Amazon Kindle and CreateSpace and such. Mainly interested in historical fiction, but I kind of have more ideas than time. So we'll see what comes of all that. Currently a school teacher in the Meade School District. Got to that kind of late in life after age 40. I was in the Marine Corps and spent quite a bit of time in Afghanistan before, but now I'm here. You can kind of see the inside of my yurt here. I built up north of Green Bluff, so just been a couple months, and
wow,
yeah, so that's me.
You enjoy living in a yurt? It's
yeah, the ultimate open kind of concept, open floor plan. So
yeah.
Have a loft for my daughter. She's 13, so.
I can remember as a child, we lived in a Quonset hut, one of the places we lived. And it was just this curved.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that was
like
that.
This is really, people, when I tell them I live in a yurt, they think I'm like off grid and it's just like a tent. And this is a round house. It's not small by any means. So
no, they're pretty neat. I've seen a lot about them. So Beth, how about you? You're muted, so if you unmute, you can tell us all about you.
There. First, I had to figure out how to unmute.
Yeah.
Okay. Like James, I am deep into historical fiction, and as you probably already know, and I also have started a new art crime series, mostly because I'm drawn to history, culture, and want to figure stuff out. So it's an excuse to go do research and tell stories and have fun.
There you go. There you go. All right. How about you, Mark?
Let's see. I've been writing about 20 years as more of a hobby, and I'm at a place now where I want to make some money if that's possible.
Okay.
I'm a fiction writer. I've written about 15 short stories for children, and I have three novels on Amazon that are sitting in a dark corner somewhere, and 3 other books of short stories and some graphics that I do, and they're in the other dark corner somewhere in that place. But I'm going to start looking for agents, and in fact, I had good news today, because one novel that I think can sell deals with capital punishment. And I've needed a attorney to go over it and show me where I've indulged in fantasies.
Mhm.
And anyway, so a friend of a friend type situation, he's retired and he's willing to look it over. So that
Cool.
will help. So whenever I maybe link up with an agent, I'll be confident.
Yeah.
And if they say, is this all legally accurate? I could say yes.
Well, good.
So that's good news.
Well, keep us posted on it.
Yep.
How about you, Sandy? You've got the one book tucked away.
I actually have 3 books, but 2 of them are children's books, picture books. And the children's books, a former student of mine illustrated them. So that's the fun fact about that. And it took me 7 years to actually finish Into the Fire, which is historical fiction. I was going to do it as just historical book, but I could not find any information. The historical record that I could find just said Ed Pulaski left the farm at age 15 and arrived in the mining country at age 16. And I started to write it like that. And when showed the first chapter to one of my former students, and he said, "Oh no, Mrs. Mason, you can't do that. You have to give Ed some adventures and people to meet on the way and talk about that trip." So it then became historical fiction, and I had a lot of fun with it. It did say that he took the newly completed Northern Railway, and so I have a historical atlas of the United States, and so I followed the furthest north railway I could find, and I found all the towns, or some of the towns along the way, and I had him stopping there to work and do other things. So it was fun doing the
Cool.
research. It was so fun. And I'll just say one more thing, okay? I couldn't find any information. I knew he had to have some siblings. And I was just thinking around, looking at authors online that do his history. And I came across Stephen Pine, and it had a contact information email. So I sent him an email and he got back to me, and I told him what my problem was, and he called me. And I said, I can't find who Ed Pulaski's siblings are. And he said, oh, my wife's into genealogy. I think the information I needed. I was just so excited.
Wonderful,
So
wonderful.
that's about it.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, it's not really, but I'll stop now.
Yeah, I haven't watched it. We're gonna use up all our time here.
Yeah.
Joyce, you've got your book. Any changes on what's going on with that? The book that-
Not really. There was a funny thing I wanted to tell you. I went to a craft show early in the spring with a real small one, but this one lady came up and she said, oh, my mom would really like this book. Well, she came up, finally her mother came up, and she was in a wheelchair, and the daughter bought the book for her and handed it to her. And I said, well, I don't know if you're really going to like my book or not. And her eyes got big, and she said, why? And I said, because there's only one cuss word in it. She put her hand to her chest and goes, oh my God, I don't know if I know how to read that then.
That's funny. That's funny. We'll keep the stories coming, Joyce. We'll be waiting for them.
Okay.
How about you, Joan? You're muted. Do you have anything you want to say?
I did on my book, Freedom Chaser, which I published, I think in 2019 through Amazon. I did about 20 years of research before Ancestry.com was even invented.
Wow.
So I sent for deeds and land deeds and birth and death records and stuff like that through snail mail. We did it back then, but now it's a lot easier to do on Ancestry. But I started advertising my book as historical fiction, but then I found it was better under family life fiction. So that's what I marketed under, is family life fiction, because it was based on a true story. So
There you go. Yeah, those subcategories, historical fiction's a big one, and then you can get those subcategories that really do help, give it a niche to be in. So that's great. And Tonda, you and your daughter, you still working together on stuff?
Yeah.
Yep.
We're still working on we write fantasy. So
It's about the size
and
of
we're
a
still
train, right?
What?
It's about the size of a train by now.
That's my original story, and yeah, it's that I started in 2016, and because I wanted to encourage my daughter to write, and I'm still writing on it. I'm still working on what would be the equivalent of book 1 out of 3 I intend to do. I still have the story in my head, and I'm a plotter, so I've planned it all the way through. But yeah, it's currently at about 800,000 words, so it's a little bit big. Just a little. Yeah, I figure it's gonna be a series. But yeah, I'm still plugging away on that. No, we're co-writing a book together that's just supposedly just one novel. We'll see. We're working on it. The way we're working it out is we're doing I'm one character and she's another character, and we're going from their perspectives back and forth. So my characters and then her characters, and in the beginning they're against each other, so it won't stay that way, but in the beginning that's how it's going. So yeah, that's what we're working on. I have another that I have finished that I'm trying to get beta read right now, that I hopefully will be my first story published. We'll see. It was one that I actually wrote, started as a short story, and I apparently don't know how to do short stories, because the original 10,000 word short story turned into an 84,000 word story. So yeah, I and that's cutting it down. I cut a lot out of it, so it's getting there. But no, I'm not published yet on anything, so cross my fingers. We're working on it.
That's what counts. Yeah. How about you, Fred? What was that book you held up at the park? You're muted, so if you want to answer me, you need to unmute.
There's noise in the background here, but I put it all in chat. I'll put the chat up and you can read it. Okay.
Sounds good. Well, he's chatting away there. Book of short stories, whoops. I see. I'm gonna go back up here. Fred Jessup, I've been writing since '98. I'm currently working on my third novel, written and self-published too, a novella and a book of short stories and a book of short true stories. I've had nonfiction articles published in some 25 publications over the years. I wrote a column for 3 church newspapers for 10 years. That's quite a career so far already. Congratulations. How about you, Denise? You're muted too.
My kids keep hollering in the background, so I thought I'd probably put it on mute so you didn't have to hear them.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm on the tail end of a cold too. I too am a teacher, and going back to school, it seems like everybody is sick. So sharing all their germs, it's just lovely. I'm a science fiction fantasy writer as well, and I have a 4 novelette series published with a small press, and then I have a couple of short stories. I finally wrote some short stories. I usually go long as well, like everything's a lot longer, but I finally accomplished 2 short stories, and I'm kind of querying them with some of the magazines, so we'll see how that goes.
Cool.
And then I'm going to the Pacific Northwest Writers Association conference this weekend.
All right.
And for the first time, I've never been to it. I thought might as well try something. Always try something once. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
What is
great.
that again? Where's the
That is-
event?
The Pacific Northwest Writers Association Conference, they're having that this weekend
Where?
Where is that?
over in Renton.
Oh,
I usually don't venture over to the other side of the mountains too often. No, but
That's a
like,
great
I haven't
conference.
been over there for years. Is it a good conference?
Yes,
I've heard really good things about it, and it looked like it had a pretty good workshops and stuff, or pretty good panels and stuff. So, like I said, I've never been, but you know, I'll try something once, and
practice your spiel for your book. They
I
have-
will. I will. Definitely. I'll let you know how it goes next time.
Right. Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that I hope to, one of the pages on the website
Mhm.
it has things, and I know Joan notified me of one early on a couple of weeks back about a conference thing that's annual that's taking place over in, can't remember what it's over on the coast, and that's listed on the website now, and I think it's October 5, 6, 7, or 6, 7, 8, or something like that. So that's one to look at. And let's see, write on the what, Joan? What is it? Right on the, not the lake.
Right on the sound,
Sound.
October
Right on the
7th, 8th, and
sound.
9th.
There we go. There we go. Okay, Tonda just asked me what website. Did you get the link, the little link? You must have gotten the link notice. In that, above that, it talks about the new website that I built all week. I just about spent my life on it, and there's a link in there. Did you throw it away, or do you still have that message?
I
just-
still have it. I just opened it like 5 minutes before the
Yeah,
meeting.
it's
That's
no
why.
problem. I just meant it is in there. So if you have that, it's pretty basic. I lucked out. I was able to get a domain name that was really short. It's INWG-guild.com. I don't know how I did it, but yeah, well, James just put it in there. Thank you, James. That was very kind of you. And let's see. So now where are we? Ooh, Paul. How about you, Paul?
Well, I've got one book published, and I've got my memoir. Why, yes, I am a rocket scientist, almost ready to go. I'm just working on the final things. I got 6 other books. My first book, though, taught me that writing is okay, but pushing the books, marketing them is far more important than whether you're a good writer or not. So I've been sidetracked by a physics problem I've been working on, and writing a website for our museum, our local museum. And I would have said a year ago that doing it yourself is a good idea, but WordPress has just made a great leap forward, kind of like Chinese. It's a great leap backwards. And so it is incredibly difficult to make it do what you want to do. So I think you were wise to get somebody experienced to do it for you.
Yeah. No, I did it for myself.
Oh, you did yourself?
Oh, yeah. That's why I said I spent about 30, 40 hours all week doing it.
Well, then you did a good job.
Well, thank you very much. I just worked away at it. When I focused, and I'm a tech, so I was able to, I understood kind of what it was supposed to be doing. And once I figured out the business about picking a good theme and then changing it to meet your needs, and then I discovered that I could put page after page, it was like, wow, this is great. And so now I'm in love with it. I hate it. I can't tell you how much I cursed it the first day or two.
Yeah. Did you use Gutenberg?
Who?
Gutenberg?
Gutenberg. Which way did I use?
Editor. No, if you didn't, evidently you didn't. So
No, I just used their system has it's block oriented, so you just create blocks, and once you
yeah, that is
discover that
Gutenberg.
within those blocks you can tell it what kind of block you want to do. Everything. I mean, it'll do things like tables, gallery pages. I mean, all that stuff was, and now if I change a title on one of my pages, okay, it immediately goes across the entire thing and fixes that reference everywhere.
Wow.
It's so automated. It's fantastic. First, I didn't get that and it was making me nuts. And I did spend a day or two going through themes and dumping stuff and bringing up a different theme and trying. And I can, because I signed up for, I can actually use one of the more fancy themes that you pay for normally. And I went for a free one because it was the best one I could find on there. I loved it. So I've got, you know, you just have to work with it a while. And then I was immersed. I was like immersed and it worked. So Carol, how about you? What are you up to?
Oh, I've started a new book, but I did do a lot of research for my last one because my character has to be on the bottom of the ocean. And I realized my brother showed me that there's videos that then I don't know if it's the Navy and colleges, but they show what it looks like. And you can just go on and kind of look at it. And I thought that was pretty cool. So I did a lot of research so I could write exactly what it looks like. But my new book, I do a lot of thinking before I write. So I have ideas. I can finally see my characters. So I'm pretty happy. They just have to start walking with me so I can see exactly what they do.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate everybody and all your input. And what I heard coming from several of you was I had to do research for my book. And I am interested in hearing from you about your research process, how you discovered, how much trouble did you have, and how did you discover the places where you were able to get the information that you wanted? And yeah, anybody want to jump in on that?
Yeah, well, I have a nice, I'm gonna try and sell it as a cozy mystery. It's only about 60,000 words. And it takes place at the United Nations in New York. I've never been to New York. And I did what I could on the web. And I had certain assumptions about what must go on in the lobby there. But anyways, this goes back some years, and I just sent out emails to a few things there at the UN to try and get somebody to give me a little feedback, like, is there underground parking? Is there a gift shop? Something like that. So anyways, I think that the day after I sent out some of these emails, I got a phone call that woke me up. It was the United Nations security personnel. They're very curious why I was asking these questions. And my story has a terrorist attack at the United Nations in order to spice all that up. So, you know, after I tried to calm them down, you know, and hung up, it was just like everything I should have said, you know, it's too late. Make me sound credible. But this other novel on capital punishment, I've been everywhere on the web and reading cases and things like that. So, and like I said, trying to find a local attorney that, you know, doesn't want to charge me attorney rates, or a retired attorney, you know, that's been difficult. And, you know, I don't have like $3,000 to pay an attorney to whatever an hour to read my 130,000 page manuscript. So yeah, the internet. And by the way, for that book as a fiction, I have no footnotes. I don't write with footnotes. I just, you know, it's fiction.
Right. Yeah, that makes a difference, I think. if one is to write a nonfiction book, of course, just by its very nature, it's going to require a lot more research because you're going to be picking a topic that you're going to have specialized knowledge about for that book. Theoretically, most people write nonfiction things from their own experience or from their own field of work. And so it's a little easier for them perhaps because they've got some ins. And I know Paul just unmuted himself. So go for it, Paul.
Well, I think I disagree. I think fiction writers have more reason to research because it's got to be right. I just read a book by Lee Child, and it's incredible the things he got wrong that he should have known if he'd done his research. And that really detracts from a fiction book.
What was he writing about that you would know that he got it wrong?
Well, for instance, what you call things, the words he used to describe things. He's he said kit bag instead of duffel bag, and he referred to places, and he got the organization of the places in wrong, and he had a whole bunch of legal things that just wouldn't work that way.
But he is British.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
That's
Things
one
are
reason.
probably different over there.
Yes.
Yeah, it might be a kit bag.
Yeah, they have a lot of different terminology there, I've noticed. One of the things that I just discovered too, or just heard, was I did not know that when courts try cases and come up with a decision, that if it's in the circuit court, it's only for that circuit. So if they pass something here, it doesn't mean it's law. Or if it's the 11th Circuit, whatever they said doesn't necessarily hold water in the Second Circuit. And I had no idea. No wonder everybody has to end up Supreme Court to iron it out, because that's where they have to look at all the decisions and say, wait a minute, and then come up with some kind of.
Yes. The Ninth Circuit is the most reversed circuit in the country.
Yeah.
California.
Yep. Washington, he's done really, really well. Our AG is like, what is he and other states and stuff they've taken even to the Supreme Court, and they've won like, I don't know, 85, 90% of their cases. That's a pretty good record. But anyway, that's enough on legal stuff. But
one thing I found, so on the newsletter, I found a beta reader. He's part of the guild, and Jay Logan, and I found he's a great resource for me. I have tunnels and structures and all kinds of things in my book, my novel.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to work for the government doing that kind of thing, like geology and all that. And so I found that, when you find somebody, you can find, you don't know what kind of background they have until you start talking to somebody, and they can have a lot of information for you, like from previous jobs or I think that just talking to people is a good, if it helps your book, but I mean, it's a good resource. So that was a good thing. I think it'll make it a lot more. I did a bunch of research online, but there's nothing like talking to somebody that knows what they're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting because what happens when you do research of any kind, whether it's interviewing someone or looking something up, you actually are the final arbiter of whether or not that information is likely to be true. And in fact, whether it's true just for a small area or in your own locale, or if it's true in a state or a country or around the world, because everything is different here and there. And I was thinking about that when I was doing all this research online. I thought, okay, so now I've got these listings that I'll put up on the site at some point here that talks about these libraries where they have access to millions of books, which means we have access to millions of books. There's no way. I can't even read the ones I have in my house, let alone, do that. But how does one then decide and say, oh, well, this is what it says in this book, so I'll reference this and I'll use this. But how do you know it's true? How do you know it's something you can trust? So yeah, Sandy, did you have?
Yeah. I was just inspired by the Ed Pulaski and the whole 1910 fire. And I really had not heard anything about him and very little about that fire. And my first thought was, well, I wasn't too far from Coeur d'Alene and the Coeur d'Alene Forest Service. And so I contacted them and they let me come in, and they had what they called a forest archaeologist. And I made an appointment to meet with her, and she took me back into the stacks in the archives and just turned me loose.
Wow.
She showed me a bunch of stuff and just turned me loose. And I spent not as long probably as I should have. And then at that time, the Forest Service had a wonderfully easy to use website. I've been back since I did the book, and it's not nearly as user friendly. And I found articles written. In fact, what got me interested was I found an essay written by Ed Pulaski titled "My Most Exciting Adventure as a Forest Ranger." And it was like 1 page. And that basically became the book. But it was so exciting to learn about different rangers and all sorts of people. And I got a lot of that from the website and the archives, and it was, and other people. So the end.
No, that's great. Thank you. That's the thing that helps is when you've actually done something and had the experience of doing that research. And then you can talk about, how well it worked. And that one of the things I ran across in my research was how many museums there are. There's thousands and thousands of museums. And of course, each one is dedicated usually, or not always, but usually to some topic. And like it might be the railroad system in the country, and that may have its museum. And so if it's possible to either go there in person or to do research, if they've got stuff online, if they digitalized it, that you can do that kind of research through them. So if you're writing about a train system in your novel and you want to get it right, then you can check that out and see, James?
Oh, I was just going to say about trains. I was on a road trip in summer of 2021. I like to go on road trips and travel, and then I kind of do research at the same time because I like history stuff. My daughter and I went to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and then I think it's somewhere in Wisconsin. But there's like a train museum, and they have all sorts of engines. They have the car that General Eisenhower used as his mobile headquarters in France during World War II. And so it was pretty cool. We just kind of stumbled across, and it was like, so that's, anyway, yeah, I like travel, and because I like historical fiction and the American West, we're well placed to research that kind of thing. But then a couple of online resources I used, I'll put a link for one of them here. It's called Newspaper Archive. I don't know if anybody's used that before, but it's got.
I was just thinking about buying that.
Several hundred years.
Yeah.
I haven't used it recently, but I thought it was interesting in the past because you can, one thing that I find irksome when I'm reading historical fiction is when people kind of write about something maybe 200 years ago with modern sensibilities, which is just inaccurate to me. So I think this kind of can help.
Yeah, I was thinking about splurging for a year of that once I get to the point where I want to start doing it and do at least a year. But it's cheaper if you do it for the whole year.
Yeah.
And it breaks out at something like $8 a month. Whereas if you do it for 6 months, it's more. And if you do it for 1 month, it's $20.
Yeah.
So it's a
And
lot better. And but
one other
the
online
newspapers
resource.
go forever, and you can find all sorts of articles that
Yeah.
yeah.
And then the other thing I was going to add is that National Geographic has digital archives go back to the beginning, which I think was like 1896 or 92. something
Wow.
like that.
Yeah.
So you can read. I found some cool old articles, like people went on a walking trip across Afghanistan in the 1950s before
Mhm.
it went off the rails. It was interesting to read.
Well,
Scientific.
do you have to have a do you have to buy into National Geographic in order to
I
have
think you
access to
do.
that?
It's tied into a subscription or something like that. And,
Mhm.
and again, I haven't used it for a couple of years, but it was
Okay.
interesting when I did
Yeah, a
look at it.
lot of the best sites are like that. I mean, they got to make it. They got to pay for it somehow. And
Yeah, because
yeah,
people
you
don't
know,
have the paper copies anymore.
we're
My
just used to looking up things on Google and going, well, this stuff's all free. What's your well, look at what they've invested in having all that information available, and they have to maintain it. So yeah, it costs money. You've got servers and staff and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, Beth.
Well, I would just like to add another thing. I was kind of intrigued by what Twanda said about being a plotter and having everything mapped out. Well, I am a pantser. So when I start with the story, it's kind of, I've got an idea and I'm not sure where it's going, but I know I got the setting, I got the characters, and let's see what happens. And how I develop my direction in the story is through research. And the current story I'm working on is set in Cairo, Egypt, which I actually had the privilege of visiting in 2004 for about a month, but it's not 2004 anymore. So how am I going to find out what life is like there? Well, it turns out that one of the characters is going to be a street kid. So I found out about homelessness in Cairo, which is a tremendous problem. Now, how did I find out about it? I just started the Google search with different keywords and just kept, as you said, Linda, falling down the rat hole until I found enough to really work with.
Mhm.
And one of the resources that I like to use, I like the New York Times, I like National Geographic. I would say that's a great resource as well. But something that is not always, they have government documents that you can download, free PDF files that go into even more depth. So what I look for is when there's some information that I think is interesting and useful for storytelling, I look to see if it's talked about in other articles that will verify it. So if I find a unique fact, something that I didn't know, I want to verify it in some way. And another something that I don't normally think of, but YouTube, believe it or not, YouTube with keywords can take you out on the streets in Cairo and help you see what the life is like. And so it's just stay open to what's available online would be my suggestion, and then try to verify what you have. Talking to other people, interviewing, all that works. But for me right now, I just want that flood of information coming in. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, Denise was posting some things here about, and it looks like James followed up too with the Google Earth, he said, can be helpful with topography. And you, Denise, mentioned Google Maps to look at street level. There's virtual tours. And let's see.
And use that for different museums that I've never been to, because they'll have the virtual tours. And so if I mention a place, I want to be somewhat accurate with the description. So I've used that before.
Yeah, that's even in fantasy. My original story actually starts in Enumclaw, Washington. So, but it's fantasy, so I still have some fantasy setting, but yeah, using the maps and finding out the names of the roads because they ride up over the pass. And so, and there's an actual trail that goes up and over the pass. And so I used the maps and that to take and find the right location, where the trailhead is, what it's called, things like that. So yeah, using that. Also, mine is kind of a medieval, it's kind of like Western and medieval setting mixed together, because it's not on Earth. But they use swords and stuff. Well, it's not just researching how swords work, but I also, thanks to my kids, and I tend to collect swords, I've learned how to do sword moves and stuff so that I could actually do the moves, so that I could realistically say, yeah, you could swing this way when you're trying to describe it in the story. So actually physically doing it as well, as well as researching it and, people saying it, how it's done in books, that kind of stuff.
Good idea. Good idea. Yeah, I took a couple of years of martial arts, and I wish I was writing a story that needed that, but I'm not. But it wasn't all the way, no. Let's see here. Looking at stuff, also research books on Amazon and eBay, TikTok. Joan said she used that. Yeah, it was you, Joan. Books on Amazon. When you say you research books on Amazon, how does that work for you? You're muted.
Okay. So what I do is, put in the subject line, what are some books about China? Or what are, if I'm writing a spy thriller about China, I'll research on Amazon. Or I've also found an ebook, on eBay, that something that I couldn't find somewhere else. It was about a place in Kansas. They had a 100th year, the town wrote 100th year anniversary book, and I found my great grandfather in it. And,
Wow.
I had no idea that I would find him in it, but I bought the book. It was used, and I was really happy to find he was in one of the first 10 pages.
Wow.
So that was exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. The book she's talking about is one of the ones that's showing up on the website on that featured books page. So I think you'll recognize it. It's the only person on the cover that looks like he's in a uniform and he's older. I don't mean older in age, I mean older in the past.
Yeah, in the 1800s. The other thing that I found writing that, it started out to be a historical novel, but what I found through my critique group, I'd bring something that I found interesting, and, it didn't fit in the novel. So I put it like in a footnote, like, what was one thing that, I can't remember what they used bullhorns for, or something. That's just an example, corsets or something like that were used, something like that. That was an interesting tidbit, but it didn't really fit in the novel, but I put it as a footnote and kind of in the back, in the back kind of end notes. And my critique group found them really interesting, so.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting because you can have something, you say, well, it's a novel, people are just going to read it, but it does bring up questions about the times that you're writing about, or the people, and where they were, what part of the country. Paul, you're raising your hand.
Yes, I did. This has been about a year ago. I was doing some research and I used Wikipedia. And I'm a history nut. And I started reading some of the things about pre-Civil War and Civil War things that were happening. And it's becoming very woke. They're kind of rewriting history. I was looking for the words and the, the attitudes of the time, but those were kind of written out and replaced with commentary on how bad things, were. And so the stuff I was looking up just wasn't terribly useful.
Mhm. Do you
Yeah,
want you were changing the original books or?
The Wikipedia articles about different things.
Yeah, Wikipedia, gotcha. Yeah, that can be freely. James, you were gonna say something?
just that, yeah, Wikipedia, pretty much anybody can go in there. So I could go in there in the next 10 minutes and say that Paul was the first man to walk on the moon in 1969, even though I think we all know that that's not true.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of with
You're,
students.
you're claiming I'm lying?
No, I could go create the lie, and if you wanted to buy into it, that's on you.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just, I know in teaching, I tell students, well, no, that's not really a resource that you can use. Maybe look at the
Yeah,
resources they link to it and see if that can set you on the right track.
I was just reading something that was talking about how Wikipedia had a bad rep there for a while because there was some bad information and stuff that people were posting. But I've gone in, it depends on, I think, what you're looking for, because I've gone in and done a lot of stuff that's put up by, say, the Jewish rabbis and that, and they'll put up commentaries on scripture and things like that. And this stuff is so technical and it's so long, and they monitor that all the time. So in general, I don't think anybody would normally go on and fiddle with that stuff because they don't even know what they're fiddling with. You know what I mean? It's like, I think there are some topics that draw people to become little munchkins and decide they're gonna, whittle away at stuff or get in there and stir the pot themselves. So
Gremlin.
yeah, gremlin. So, but Wikipedia is a kind of a weird one because, like you say, it's wide open. I've thought about that. The reason that it was of interest to me at one point was when I used to introduce big authors. We had authors on in Antes. We had the second floor, and it's a huge area, and we'd have authors come and all these people, and so I got up and mentioned that according to Wikipedia, she is an award. She won this award and this award and this award. Okay. And I said, however, I'm not sure if that's accurate. When she got up to do her thing, and she says, actually, no, they gave me an award I never got, and they didn't give me an award that I had gotten. So no, you can't depend on them. So it's one of those things where I think you have to see maybe what the information is, and like you said, follow the crumbs and go to some source where you think you can trust it to see if that supports it or speaks against it. Marks?
Yeah. Yeah, I did a religious book and talked to a couple rabbis and got books from synagogues, and there's a whole lot of religious sites, like Jews are very much known for detail and long truth or commentary. So it was very interesting.
Yeah. But in one of the references that I saw, as again my research, somebody made the statement. They said it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's a book, if it's a website, or what it is. It can look pretty good and it may be fine, but it can also be inaccurate. I mean, that's because this stuff is all prepared by human beings, and human beings don't. I mean, they may have something that's just they could have something that's sort of a local opinion in their own church or their own region of a church and or of faith, and it may not be agreed with over there. And so, you know, it depends on how you handle the information that you get. What are you going to do with it? And so, well, and we're up on time here, and I have really enjoyed this. I will be working on this topic and trying to pare it down to what I think are the best, most succinct links and that I can put up for you. And just remember, you're on your own when it comes to whether or not you use it, believe it, or anything else, because there's no guarantees. I wish there were, but because we're trying to get it straight, but you know, how are you going to know? Anybody have any last comments to make?
There's lots of stuff on the internet, and some of it is even true.
Yeah. Good, Paul. That's good. Yep, you got it.
Nice to meet everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Nice to meet you, James. We're happy to have you with us. And there's different people that could not be here tonight, I will tell you. So you missed a few. Steve Lalonde is here almost every time, but his grandson had his birthday party tonight, so he said he couldn't make it. And
Right.
yeah, so things happen, and we just sort of rotate around. But we've got a nice group that tries to show up as often as possible. So
We'll see you again.
y'all
Thank
take
you.
It was nice
Bye-bye.
meeting you.
care. Bye-bye.
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 Bye all.
Thanks,
You
Linda.
write me, you email me with questions, comments, any new information, things you think should be on the website, whatever. Just let me know. Okay?
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Good to see y'all.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody want to hang with me for any reason? Because I'll,
Sure.
if not,
I was
I'm about to end the meeting if
I was going to
somebody-
say something about websites. I did a lot of website building with WordPress before the block system,
Mhm.
and the blocks are so darned eccentric